Hari Om. Welcome to another session in English literature. Today the story that I'll be talking about is The Fun They Had, which is included in the syllabus of Standard 9 CBSE. The story has been written by Isaac Asimov, a Russian-born American writer who had been very famous for writing science fiction stories. But before I start off with the story, how many of us are fascinated by antics? I guess most of us. Things that we've been hearing from our parents, things that we've been hearing from our grandparents, which we've not been seeing. But we often say, old is gold. Have you ever wondered, why do we say so? Something that is old has got tremendous value. This is what we have been believing. And something that is old has a lot of historical importance. The story, although is a science fiction again, which highlights the importance of the modern world, which highlights the importance of technology, but still, the story highlights again certain values that still existed or still exist in today's world. The story talks about a small girl, Margie, and her experiences. And these experiences go in contrast with the situations that happened once upon a time in the community, in the society. The story again makes us ponder over a couple of things, especially because we dwell a lot in the virtual world. Today in the society, in today's society, we see a lot of Facebook, we see a lot of Instagram, we see a lot of social networking platforms, Twitter, Skype. Even now that I'm talking to you, basically I'm talking to you virtually. You're seeing me virtually. Can the essence of the real be found in the virtual? I guess no. The feel that we get of holding a book, the feel that we get interacting personally, that feel is far more superior than the virtual interaction. And these are a couple of things that the story highlights here. Let's begin. Margie wrote it that night in her diary. Margie is a small girl who has the habit of maintaining a diary, as many children do, as many adults do. We often have a habit of maintaining a diary where we jot down our feelings, where we jot down something unique that we see or come across. So even Margie did that. On the page headed May 17th, 2155. Now this story is not about 2020. The story is about 2100, that is 22nd century. It's not about the 21st century. The story has taken us far ahead of our present times. And the writer has very well visualized the importance of technology or the importance of the virtual world. Slowly and slowly, we have been seeing, if we talk about 1990s and if we talk about 2000, if now we are in 2020, we have been watching, we have been coming across how much we have become dependent on machines, how much we have been dependent on the virtual world Today we have the smartphone technology, we have the laptop technology, we have the machine technology, and sitting in the same house, sitting on the same couch, we love playing with our mobile phones. Even we do not even care who's sitting next to us. And this is the power of virtual world that has actually taken a toll on our lives. So this story talks about 2155, the year 2155. She wrote, "Today Tommy found the real book." The writer gives us a hint. And the hint, somewhere you will find, is a bit satirical, is a bit critical, because today we are lucky to be handling real books. But in the story, Margie, when she comes in connection with a book, when she hears about a book, she is awestruck. Oh my God, there was a real book. So Tommy, her brother, found a real book, and that became something very unique. Something very unique for Margie, because she had never seen a book. And that is the place, that is the point at which the writer is trying to show our dependence on the virtual world, on the virtual society that we ourselves have created somewhere. It was a very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him there was a time all stories were printed on paper. Today we do not even have to stand in a queue to book our tickets. Slowly and slowly, technology has taken over our lives. Be it cinema, be it railways, be it airways, be it anything, even for booking your own gas cylinders. You just have to type a couple of buttons on your smartphone and the thing is done. When you talk about India, we often say India is digital. And look at a point that the writer has, showcased in this particular area. There will probably be a time in the near future when we will not be able to, find something that is tangible. The book that he is talking about once existed. That is the reason why I said old is gold, and that is where there is a hint of criticism. Why? Because today, the things that we find, today, the things that, we are seeing around, probably due to the excessive use of technology, there will be a day when things will become extinct. So, at that point of time, I feel that the writer is kind of giving us a warning. And the warning is very simple. Value the people around you, value the relations around you, value the commodities around you and their importance. Now, my teaching you through a video will not be giving you that flavor when I interact with you in person. And that is something which has been hinted in the story. Margie's grandfather, when he was in school, they had the questions, they had stories, they had everything printed on paper. And Margie was awestruck. Margie was taken aback. Oh my God, how could this happen? Because Margie had not seen. Margie had not seen these things happening. And that is the reason why, for Margie, that experience somewhere becomes priceless. Today when you sit with your grandfather, today when you sit with your father, today when you sit with anybody who belongs to the days of yore, who belongs to yesteryears, and when you talk about the phase that India saw in 1980s or the world saw in 1970s, 1990, even 1990. You don't find those things anymore today. And I'm very sure many of us are intrigued. We are curious to know more about things that happened once upon a time way back. Margie also was intrigued. She was curious. She was inquisitive about facts, about commodities, about the society that was seen once upon a time. Now, what did they do with the book? They turned the pages which were yellow and crinkly. And it was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to. And that is where we again are reminded of an immense technological advancement. Margie was in the year 2155. Margie was exposed to an educational system. Margie was exposed to an academical system where words generally changed on the virtual screen. They never stood still. They never stood still. So now, when she found the old book with crinkly pages, she was very much taken aback. She was very excited to find that the words were still. They were immobile. They didn't move. And then, when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words. It was not a virtual book. Even today, when you go through Kindle or when you go through some e-book, you often find that the pages can be flipped with the help of your finger. But believe me, does that give you the feel of a real book? I don't think so. Because something that is real is ultimately real, and something that is virtual is after all virtual. So when she flipped through the pages, she found that the words never changed. They were the same words on it that it had when they read it the first time. So even when you read the book for the first time, the words don't change. Even when you read the book for the 10th time, it does not change. Gee, said Tommy, what a waste. When you're through with the book, just throw it away, I guess. Our television screen must have had 1,000,000 books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away. Now, there are some pros and cons of every generation. And with the advancement of years, the present generation, and when the present generation comes in contrast with the future generation, things are bound to be different. Now, today's child can relate to a mobile phone more than a child belonging to 1990s or probably 1980s. And definitely today's child will advocate the use of mobile phone more because it has made things very handy and easily available. Of course, with the advancement of technology, things have become very easy. But what about the basic? Definitely you can read millions of books virtually. But what about the real feel of a book? From where will you be bringing that feel? Now, Tommy advocated technology. Tommy said, all right, once you read a book, you're done with it, you can throw it away. But the television screen has got millions of books in it. So, there is no chance of throwing books away. Same with mine, said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks. as Tommy had. He was 13. Imagine, the writer is so foresighted that sitting way back in the 19th century, probably when writing this story, he imagined the 21st century, he imagined the 22nd century, or probably sitting in the 20th century. He was far ahead of his times. And he showed the readers that there will be a time when, with the advent of technology, dependence of human lives will be more on technology. They were just 11 years old, they were just 13 years old, and their dependence on technology was far stronger, far more. She said, "Where did you find it?" Now, Margie was very interested, very much interested, and she was very inquisitive about the origin of that real book. "In my house," he pointed without looking, because he was busy reading in the attic. "What is it about?" "School." Margie was scornful. She was a bit irritated. She was a bit angry. "School? What's there to write about? School?" And this line is important because Margie was not exposed to the type of school or to the types of schools we are exposed or we have been exposed to. "I hate school." Margie clearly asserted that she hated school. Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher, now this line onwards, you will find a glimpse of their society. You will find a glimpse of technology being used in those times, and she tells the mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. Now, this county inspector was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. No physical connection between a teacher and student. No communication in person like the way you find today. If you go through the Veda or the Vedas, if you go through the Upanishads, if you go through any religious book, if you go through the books that were written long, centuries ago, they talk about the importance of a guru. And we always say Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara. Why do we say so? Why do we use these shlokas? Because a guru or a teacher is not just a machine, can never be a machine. It is a guru who, through his experiences, will give you proper knowledge, practical knowledge. And if you do not have practical knowledge, you can never grow depending on a virtual world. You cannot eat potatoes from the screen of your mobile phone. You cannot enjoy butter chicken as shown on the television screens in the cookery shows. In order to eat butter chicken, you need to prepare. Similarly, in order to take knowledge from guru or a teacher, you need to interact. This cannot happen virtually all the time. And that is where you can say that the story becomes a bit satirical about the excessive use of technology. That is where you can say that the story is hinting at the lack of personal growth of the students. Because if I do not interact with you in person, how will I be able to understand you emotionally? Because for a teacher or for a student, emotional connection is very important, and this emotional connection was missing here. The county inspector came. He was a round little man with box of tools with dials and wires. He smiled at her and gave her an apple, then took the teacher apart. Imagine the teacher, the machine was being taken apart. Margie continuously kept on performing poorly. There was nobody to understand her emotionally, nobody to analyze, where she went wrong, nobody to motivate her. And in the teaching learning process, believe me, motivation is more important than text. If I talk to you in person and if I do not motivate you in person, you will never be developing that trust in you. You will never be developing that confidence in you, that conviction in you. So Margie suffered from that. That is the ailment. That is the mental ailment, the spiritual ailment, I must say, the emotional ailment, I must say, that she was suffering from. So what would the teacher be done? The teacher was taken apart. Margie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again. Look at that experience that Margie developed. When we sit in schools, when we sit in the classrooms, we can connect with our teachers. The teacher coming and telling, "Good morning, everybody. Good morning, miss. Good morning, sir." Imagine, there is a lot of activity. There is a lot of emotional connectivity, and Margie did not have that, and that is the reason why she desired that the county inspector should never be able to fix the teacher up. But he knew how, all right. And after an hour or so, there it was again. So, to the displeasure of Margie, the teacher was back in its place. And the writer, Isaac Asimov, has very, very evocatively pointed out the emotions of a student. Because it's very important to understand how a student feels. Only then can a student perform well. If a student is not understood, it practically becomes impossible for any teacher or even the student to yield proper results. So the teacher was back again. It was large and black and ugly with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. No human touch, no emotiveness, no emotional connectivity, nothing but a big black ugly box. Now imagine my teaching you with a box. I don't have a face. Imagine I am teaching you a chapter. I'm teaching you poetry. I'm teaching you rain. I'm teaching you mountain. I'm teaching you anything. But I don't have any expression. How would you understand? You won't be able to understand anything, because whatever I'll be teaching you, that would look very mechanical. And my dear students, my dear friends, if there is no personal touch added to the text, comprehension is impossible. Understanding is nil. So it was a big black screen on which the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. That wasn't so bad. The part she hated most was the slot. She had to put homework and test papers. Margie, just like any other student, just like any other child that you find today, or even in the years that have passed by, had the same emotions. She hated her homework. She hated tests. She always had to write them out in a punch code They made her learn when she was 6 years old. And the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in no time. Margie's test, or the tests which Margie answered, the nature of those tests was also very mechanical. She had to write them out in punch codes. Now you tell me, in all your tests, if you are only told either to tick or cross, how do you understand where you go wrong? And that is the reason the test procedure, the test scenario was something that she hated the most. Which is very obvious. Because children, if they do not feel, if they cannot relate their text with the society or with the things that they see and come across, learning becomes a myth. Learning practically becomes a myth. And that is the reason she hated. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted her head. He said to her mother, "It's not the little girl's fault, Mrs. Jones. I think the geography sector was geared a little too quick. Learning should happen gradually. And it is not just one book that gives you the knowledge of everything. It is a conglomeration, the assimilation of many books, many subjects, many experiences, and many kinds of realities that you come across. Even when I teach you literature, literature just not only talks about literature. You can learn literature from history also. You can learn literature from geography also. There needs to be a factor of relatability. And that relatability was missing. The accounting inspector, very clearly said that the girl is at no fault. The geography sector was leveled up. Now you tell me something. How can a machine that is devised by man, how can a machine that is ultimately invented by man measure your intelligence? And that is the power of literature. I had told many a times, I do tell this many a times, that literature is all about life. And here you find the life skill. And the life skill is very simple. Just as every flower is different, just as every tree is different, just as every plant is different, similarly every child is different. You may have different skills. Your friends will have different skills. But each person, believe me, is special. So how can a machine determine your capabilities or your potentials? They were trying to judge Margie's capabilities through a machine. And that is where satire lies. Because if I talk about a machine, the machine is ultimately devised by a man who has far more potentials, who has got far more creativity than a machine. So how can you make a machine your master? How can you think the virtual world to be real? That is not possible. That should not be so. So those things happen sometimes. I have slowed it up to an average 10-year level. Margie was 11 years old. And this is where I need to explain you yet another thing. A child cannot be judged by his age. If a child is 16 years old, if a child is 9 years old, he may have accumulated experiences that are ahead of his times. Who knows that? And at this point of time, when the level has been lowered to a standard, to an age 10 level, I mean a year lower to what Maji was. At this point of time, humanity is being undermined by technology. And that is where the criticism lies. That is where satire lies. Maji was 11 years old. How did that matter? Had she been exposed to reality, had she been exposed to the pragmatic facet or the practical facet of things, who can say she might have developed experiences like an 18-year-old girl? A machine cannot judge that somehow. A machine cannot judge that. And that is what they were doing. Nevertheless, Maji's emotions, at this point of time, we have to realize that Maji's emotions were not understood. And that is the reason probably her curiosity, her inquisitiveness for the book had doubled. She wanted to know more of what was real than the virtual that she saw. Actually, overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory, this county inspector said. And he patted Maji's head again. Maji was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. She never wanted a machine to teach her. Nobody wants a machine. That's very true. You can use your smartphone for booking tickets. You can use your smartphones for playing PUBG all the time. But you cannot live in the world that the PUBG game offers you. You have to come back to reality. You cannot be depending all the time on things that you just see on the smartphone or the laptop or the television screens. Maji was disappointed, and that is the reason she never wanted a machine to teach her. And they had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had blanked out completely. I'm sorry. And this is where the writer, very subtly, in a very subtle manner, makes us realize the importance of the human brain and the importance of a physical, the physical importance of a teacher. Because the presence of a teacher itself triggers the motivation or the motivating factor. That itself is a motivating factor for any child, and that is what is missing here. And that is the reason where I shall talk about the significance of title, The Fun They Had. This fun they had is not about the fun that these people are having with machines. No. The fun they had in school in the times of the grandfather is what the story hints at. Because when you are in school, whenever you are in school, or probably whenever you are interacting with your friends, you're interacting with your teachers, you're coming across the reality of things. You are holding a book properly in your hands, flipping through the pages, marking on it, writing, understanding, and most importantly, interacting. Here, these things were missing. And that is the reason when Tommy's teacher had been taken away, it was a kind of relief. So she said to Tommy, why would anyone write about school? And that is the reason. That is the reason why she hated school. She hated school because there was no interaction. She hated school because there were lots of tests being conducted. There was no emotional connection between herself and the teacher. And that is the reason. Living in 2155, the year 2155, she was awestruck and curious, both at the same time, to know why would somebody write about school. What was so special that they found in a school? Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes because it's not our kind of school. And that is where the crux of the story lies. That is where the significance of the story lies. The school that they talk about in the book is not the kind of school that Margie and Tommy were exposed to. In this part of the lecture, we will stop here. Please go through the text properly and come back if you have any doubts. But before I end my lecture, let me tell you something. So far, the story, the writer has successfully portrayed a contrast. Now, definitely, technological advancement makes our lives far easier. But at the same time, the essence of reality cannot take over virtual society. With that, I rest for the day. Kindly go through the video and come up with any doubts if you have. Hari Om.